Hello, and welcome to the second part of ELPS and Ellevation training. I'm Gina Clary, Program Manager for Bilingual Education and ESL for Life School. Hopefully, you've already completed the first part of this training, which was part of the compliance courses at the beginning of the school year. If for some reason you did not, please go to your account in Workshop in Eduphoria and access that training. You'll find it titled ELPS training under the annual compliance courses. That will give you some foundational information that you'll need about accessing Ellevation and finding out who your English learners are, because this training is going to dive right into the next navigational steps. So in this training, we're going to be looking at, now that we know who our English learners are and who our exited monitored students are, how we can best support them in instruction and on assessments. So let's get started. So just to let you know, I'm doing this training on a demo site, so it will look a little bit different from each of your dashboards, but you probably already have noticed that the dashboard looks a little different than it did in the first training, and that's because Ellevation made some recent updates and enhancements to the program. So all of the basic components are still there, but the graphics and layout are a little bit different. But they've made some really nice changes, and I think it's even a little bit more user-friendly than it was before. So from my dashboard that I have here, you're going to see a couple of things that are going to be the same. You're going to see a box that'll show how many active L's or English learners you have, and you're going to see another box that will say exited monitored students. You won't see this exited monitored complete students because I didn't set up our dashboard and customize it in that way for our district to have that box, but you will see your active L's and your exited monitored students. So I can click on either of those headers, and you can as well, to then open up a list of students. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the active EL students or active L so that I can go directly to one of the individual student profiles. Now, you probably don't have 106 students, or maybe you do, depending on what you teach and what campus you're at. But your list of students will look very similar to this. And you can notice that as I hover over the names, I get a little link that will open up where I can go directly to the student profile page. Or if I already know what information I'm looking for a particular student, I can click on this little drop-down arrow. And these are the tabs that are associated with the profile pages. So if I want to just see test results, I can go directly to that tab open. But for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm just going to go to a student, and I'm going to pick a fourth grader here. And I'm just going to go directly to that student profile page so we can review a little bit about what you'll see. Now, one of the things that I like about this is when I go to the student profile, it opens up the student profile in a new window. So I haven't closed my student list that was open previously. So as soon as I'm finished looking at whatever information I'm looking for the student, or if I'm going to be leaving a note or some data, I can just close that window and then I go right back to my student list. So I don't have to do a lot of back browsing and navigating around. So that's a really helpful feature. So let me go back to, or just click another student again. So if you remember, this will default to the student demographics page when you go to a student profile, but we're going to be looking at two specific tabs today. We're going to be looking at instructional accommodations and designated supports. So again, this is going to be the information on how we can best support the students, both in instruction and on assessments. Now, one of the things that you will see right here in the right-hand corner of the demographics page is going to be the most recent proficiency level data that we have on the student. So for most students at Life School, it's going to be the Spring TELPAS 2019 results. Let me go back. Let me pick another profile that has 2019. I think I was looking at this student earlier. Again, this is a demo site, so not real students, but these are all 2018. So anyway, you're probably going to see 2019 TELPAS data for any of your current students. A substitution of that would be if the student came from another state or was new to the US in their schooling, then what you might see here is the identification testing that was done, which is called lost links, or maybe pre-loss if they're in kindergarten, since they have not yet been assessed on TELPAS. But regardless, you should see something here that is going to give you some proficiency information so that you can see how the student has performed most recently in listening, speaking, reading, writing, and then a combination of those, or the composite score. So that's going to be helpful as you're planning the types of supports that the student will need, both for classroom instruction and for testing. So let's go first to the Instructional Accommodations tab. Now, this is going to look a little bit different because I've customized it differently for our district so that the different instructional supports that you see are categorized by the type of activity or type of language domain, listening, speaking, reading, writing, and also by the proficiency level, whether the student is beginning, intermediate, advanced, or advanced high. But what you'll see is that a number of supports should already be selected or checkmarked according to the student's proficiency level. So you would be able to see, and of course, since this demo student that we're looking at is a beginner, they need a high level of support, like extra time on tests. They need a simplified English dictionary, maybe even a picture dictionary, reading aloud of text. So again, the types of supports that are selected here are customized based on the level of proficiency of the student in the different language domains. So this is going to help you as you are planning instruction, looking at your lesson plans and the types of activities that the students will be doing, such as group discussion, or maybe they're going to be writing a summary of something that they've read. So this is kind of your cheat sheet in a way to see what are the types of supports that the student or students will need in order to have the content be more comprehensible for them and to be able to access more of the content with those scaffolded supports. You can very easily cut and paste from here if you want to put these into your lesson plan. You can also click on these supports in Eduphoria in Forethought to add them to your lesson plan. Another thing that's really great is right here, I've got this instructional accommodations report, and I can click on that, and boom, now I have a PDF that opens up that I can print out. I can keep this in another folder. I can keep this as a file on my computer so that I can constantly be referring back to this as I'm doing my lesson planning to remind myself the different types of supports that the student or a group of students might need. So this is great. And again, notice how it opened it up in a separate window. So now once I'm done printing that, and I can print or download up here, I can just go ahead and close that window and I'm back where I started. So this is really handy. And again, from that PDF, you can also cut and paste into your lesson plans. You can also put comments down here. I can't because this is a demo site, but on your account, you would be able to make comments here. And then that would also be added to your printed report or your PDF that you save of the instructional accommodations for this student. That could also be some good record keeping that you can give to your LPAC specialist, whoever your special program specialist or your counselor is who's in charge of English language learners at your campus, so that they can use that when they have their progress monitoring meetings. Okay, so that is instructional accommodation. So that's something that will definitely help you as you are, like I said, planning your lessons and putting in those instructional accommodations or thinking about those scaffolded supports that will be helpful for students at each level of proficiency. Now let's move on to designated supports, because now that we are well into we've already had our first 9 weeks of the school year, we're going to be moving in deeper into the second 9 weeks, and we've got some district testing coming up, or maybe you've already had some district CFAs or benchmarks. So what we want to know as teachers is, especially if the student was tested on STAR the previous year, what supports or what accommodations, if any, did the student have that helped the student be successful or were assigned by the language proficiency committee at the campus from the previous year. So here is where you will be able to see, if we have that information, if the student was in district last year, any testing information for the previous year, you'd be able to click and see, and it would be listed here if there were any accommodations, such as extra time, maybe oral administration, maybe content and language supports, if the student took it in an online format. Again, this being a demo site, this isn't real information, so it's kind of defaulting to the same thing on each one, but you will be able to click on each of these drop downs and see whether any accommodations were recommended and approved for testing within that testing year. Okay, so here we've got one. So this is what it would look like if the student received any special provisions, designated supports, spelling assistance, we can see here, and that was determined in conjunction with ART or 504. So again, if your students are dual coded, if they're also 504 or receive any special education services, you're still going to want to refer to those plans. And again, your demographics information is going to tell you, if I go back to demographics, whether your student is receiving any of those other services. But you'll want to refer to those plans for any other testing accommodations. But this will tell you if, because of language, the student needed any other supports for testing that were helpful for him or her. And that will kind of give you something as a foundation to start the year with. So for example, if the student received extra time on STAR reading in the previous year, then that might be something you would want to consider planning for as we get into the CFAs and benchmarks of this year, to see if the student still is needing and using extra time when they're taking reading tests. This is something that you as a teacher have the ability to go ahead and have that flexibility and try out these accommodations for our district and for regular classroom testing, because it's that data of those types of tests that we will use as we get closer to STAR to make testing accommodation decisions. So again, you can use those at your discretion for testing. Please make note of the types of supports that you're using so that the data is available later. And I think that the best place to do that would be in the notes section, where you can very easily just add a note. Right here, there's going to be a button that you can click on, and then you can say, for CFA number 1, for reading, the student was provided extra time and tested an additional 20 minutes from the other students in the class and scored whatever the score was on the test. So you're creating that data that the LPAC, like I said, will use later on as they're making those official testing decisions for STAR and for end of course exams. So those are the 2 features that I wanted to show you in this training. If you have any questions, please make sure that you reach out to me at any point in time so that I can help you navigate Ellevation and learn more about your students. And of course, if you have questions about types of supports, whether it be instructional supports for the classroom or testing supports for CFAs, benchmarks, regular classroom testing, and as we're getting closer to official state mandated tests, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help, and I'm happy to answer any questions. The next video that will be released will be on progress monitoring, how you will fill out progress monitoring forms in Ellevation on both your active English learners and your exited monitored students. So stay tuned for that video. It'll be available soon, and I will look forward to hearing any questions that you have. Thanks.